Bristol Community College, Mathematics with Dan Avedikian, Math 060, Topics in Developmental Mathematics, Section 4.3, Problem 8. This is Section 4.3, Problem 8. It says write each percent as a decimal, and we have 40%, 4%, 400%, 0.4%, 4,000%. So again, they're similar, they have a 4 in it, but they are still fairly different. So the first one, 40%, as a decimal, what you would do is take the decimal point and move it 2 places to the left. Now there's no decimal point written, but you can assume it's at the end, at the far right, or to the right of the 0. So move 2 places to the left, and it would come in front of the 4, to the left of the 4, and you would have 0.40. Now, when a decimal ends in a 0, most people don't bother to write the 0, so you could say 0.4. Now, some people like to put a 0 in front, 0.4. I would probably write the 0.4, but 0.4 is 0.4. Most people wouldn't write 0.40. The next one, 4%, which is part B. Again, write it as a decimal. So take the decimal point where it is and move it 2 places to the left. So the decimal point starts after the 4, to the right of it. So if you go 1 place, you've run out of room. So you go a 2nd place, you create a blank spot, which you can fill in as a 0. So it's 0.04 as a decimal. Now again, some people like to have the 0 in front, like a calculator would write it that way, so you can write it like that. I'd probably just write 0.04, but these are the same. 400%, write it as a decimal. So take the decimal point where it's written. It's not written in the problem, but it's assumed to be at the far right, like after the last 0. So to make it a percent, from a percent to a decimal, you would move it 2 positions to the left. So it would come between the 4 and the first 0, making 4.00. Now, most people won't write 4.00. They would just write 4. That's the way I'd write it. So 400% in its decimal form would just be 4. The next one, part D, 0.4%. So you do have a decimal written. To convert it from a percent to a decimal, you would move 2 positions to the left. So you move 1 position, you get to the left of that 0. You move 1 more position, you've run out of room, but you still move anyway. You create a blank spot, which you would fill in with a 0. So 0.4% as a decimal is 0.004. And again, some people like to start it with a 0. I usually don't, but it's not considered wrong at all. That's fine. Or 0.004. And the last one, part E, 4,000%, write it as a decimal. So take the decimal point where it's written, move 2 positions to the left. It's really not written anywhere, but it's in the problem. It's assumed to be at the far right. So if you move 2 positions to the left, it moves to being between the first and second 0. So it would be 40.00. Now, most people won't write a decimal that just ends in zeros like that. Most people just chop that right off, and I would too. So I would say that the decimal equivalent of 4,000% is just simply 40.